Ever pulled an all-nighter and felt like a zombie the next day? Well, these medieval kings and queens made sleep deprivation an art form. From glass-bodied monarchs to coffee-crazed rulers, here's how Europe's insomniacs changed history. Let's talk about Charles VI of France, who takes the crown for most unusual royal insomnia case ever. This guy was convinced, and I mean absolutely convinced, that he was made of glass. He had his tailors sew iron rods into his clothes to prevent him from shattering, and he refused to let anyone touch him. Can you imagine being his servant? "Your Majesty, it's time for bed." "No, I might crack." He'd spend weeks awake, terrified that lying down would break him into pieces. This wasn't just a quirky personality trait. It was a real condition called glass delusion, and it was surprisingly common among European nobility, though Charles definitely took it to the extreme. Let me introduce you to Frederick the Great, the king who basically ran on coffee instead of blood. This guy loved coffee so much he'd drink it with champagne. Yeah, you heard that right. He drank 5 to 6 pots of coffee every single day, and when his doctors told him to stop, he just laughed and ordered another pot. But here's the wild part. He didn't just drink coffee, he turned Prussia into Europe's first coffee-obsessed nation. He even had his own army of coffee sniffers patrolling the streets to catch anyone trying to smuggle or illegally roast coffee beans. Why? Because he wanted complete control over the coffee trade. Talk about being a coffee control freak. Now let's meet history's most intense party host, Peter the Great of Russia. This guy took FOMO to a whole new level by making parties mandatory by law. I'm not kidding. He created these wild gatherings called assemblies, where nobles had to show up and stay awake all night. If you dozed off, that's treason, baby. He'd personally walk around with a special stick to poke anyone who looked sleepy. The craziest part? These parties weren't just for fun. They were Peter's sneaky way of keeping tabs on his nobles and making sure they weren't plotting against him. Smart guy, terrible party guest. Some nobles got so desperate to stay awake, they'd stick pins in their legs under the table. Ever heard of a guy running 2 entire kingdoms while catching just 2 hours of sleep? Meet Magnus the Good, the Viking king who turned power napping into an extreme sport. This dude ruled both Norway and Denmark in the 1040s, and he did it while basically treating sleep like an optional hobby. Magnus had this wild system. He'd take these super short 15-minute naps throughout the day, usually while riding his horse between meetings. His servants got so used to it they'd just catch him when he started to slide off the saddle. The really crazy part: this sleep schedule actually worked for him. He managed to fight off invasions, handle 2 royal courts, and still had energy to party with his warriors, all while operating on what was basically the medieval equivalent of Red Bull power naps. Speaking of royal insomniacs, Isabella of Castile took working overtime to a whole new level. This queen turned her sleepless nights into Spain's most efficient courtroom. While everyone else was snoozing, Isabella would hold these midnight court sessions where anyone, from peasants to nobles, could bring their case directly to her. She'd sit there in her nightgown, crown slightly askew, listening to disputes about stolen chickens and land feuds at 3 a.m. Her advisors thought she was nuts, but the people loved it. They started calling her La Reina que nunca duerme, the queen who never sleeps. And you know what? Crime rates actually dropped because nobody knew when she might be holding court. Criminals couldn't even plan their schemes because the queen might literally be judging cases at any hour. Let me tell you about Ludwig II, the king who turned nighttime into showtime. This guy hated the sun. Seriously, he'd sleep all day and come alive at night like some royal vampire. He'd drag his servants on these crazy midnight expeditions through the Bavarian Alps, with hundreds of torches lighting up the mountains. Why? He was searching for the perfect spots to build his fairy tale castles. That's right, Neuschwanstein Castle, the one Disney copied for their logo, was designed during these nocturnal adventures. Ludwig would ride around in this golden sleigh, sketching castle plans by moonlight and making his architects climb mountains at midnight. The locals started calling him the Moon King, and honestly, the nickname fit perfectly. Ready for the wildest royal gambling story ever? Meet Christian VII of Denmark, the king who turned Copenhagen's palace into Vegas at dawn. This guy would gamble for 72 hours straight, surrounded by a mix of sketchy card sharks and terrified nobles who couldn't leave until the king said so. He'd bet on anything: cards, dice, even which raindrop would roll down a window first. His courtiers started hiding their valuables because Christian had this habit of betting the royal furniture when he ran out of cash. The really funny part, he was actually terrible at gambling, but nobody dared to win too much against him. They'd lose on purpose, then watch him celebrate like he was some card-playing genius. Here's something wild. Catherine the Great basically wrote Russia's future while everyone else was snoring. Every morning at 4 a.m. sharp, she'd jump out of bed, chug some strong Russian coffee, and start writing. We're not talking about cute diary entries here. She was cranking out laws, letters to Voltaire, and spicy memoirs that would make modern celebrities blush. She had this special desk with 5 different pens because she wrote so fast she'd wear them out. Her secretaries would wake up to find stacks of papers covered in her handwriting, complete with coffee stains and witty comments in the margins. She used to say, "Sleep is for people who aren't running empires," and honestly, looking at everything she got done, maybe she had a point. If you thought your late-night online shopping was bad, wait until you hear about Rudolph II. This Habsburg emperor turned his Prague castle into history's most expensive night shift. Every night he'd sneak down to his private lab, wearing this ridiculous golden robe, to try turning random stuff into gold. He hired a whole crew of alchemists, astrologers and magicians, basically anyone who promised they could help him strike midnight gold. The castle staff got used to hearing explosions at 3 a.m. and seeing weird smoke signals rising from his windows. He spent so much money on these experiments that his family started calling him the Night Wizard of Prague, and not in a nice way. Here's a king who took micromanaging to a whole new level of crazy. Philip II of Spain worked so many hours, his desk literally collapsed from the weight of paperwork. This guy insisted on reading and signing every document in his massive empire, from major war plans down to the cleaning schedules for palace cats. He'd start at dawn and keep going until 4 a.m., fueled by nothing but oranges and determination. His servants would find him passed out face down in state papers, still clutching his pen. The really wild part? This workaholic streak nearly wrecked Spain. Ships would sit in harbors for months waiting for Philip to approve their sailing orders. Thanks for joining me on this wild ride through history's most sleep-deprived royals. If you enjoyed these crazy stories, smash that like button and subscribe for more historical shenanigans. Share with your insomniac friends. They'll totally relate. See you next time.